let's start, just go chronologically with the two commits LSU got. Talk a little bit about that, then we'll go a big picture on the class and the future. Let's start with the one they got on Friday with four-star cornerback Nathaniel Wiggins. How did this all come about?
Nathaniel Wiggins has actually been one of the big risers in the industry just over the past few months, digging into a lot of these rankings and looking at the corners across the country. He fits the profile of guys that end up being taken very highly in the NFL draft, certainly being an instant contributor at the college level. And Corey Raymond identified him really early on in the spring and went on him really hard and just pushed and eventually LSU kind of overtook some of the other favorites in his recruitment like USC and Oregon, and he's had offers really from across the country. So this is a top 100 overall prospect, somebody that is probably going to continue to rise in the rankings. Just what he does on both sides of the ball is really impressive. 30 yards a catch last year as a receiver, and also being one of the top corner prospects in the country. He's 6'2", 170 pounds, and just overall a great job by Corey Raymond. And now, as you look at the corners they're continuing to recruit in this class, they can really continue to push for Sage Ryan, who can play corner or safety or nickel, really wherever. And then they can continue to press for five-star corner JaQuincy McKinstry out of Alabama.
How many defensive backs do they want to sign in this class?
I would say they would love to obviously get JaQuincy McKinstry. They'd love to get Sage Ryan and then another safety at some point, and that would probably be a good haul for them in the secondary. They already have Kari G committed at the safety position, and now they have Wiggins. I would say 4 to 5, ideally, for them.
Okay. Billy Embody's with us. Let's talk about, is it Shead or Shed?
I've heard Shed the most, so that's what I'm rolling with.
Hey, man, we were just having this, when Hester was walking out of here, we were having the conversation about Arik Gilbert. I'm like, hey, man, I saw a video where he says it's Arik, but people have always called me Eric, so I answer to it, and sometimes I even say it. Well, then Hester's like, he was on an interview with Cody Worsham or something. He's like, yeah, it's Eric. It's like, well, what the hell do we call these? I don't like. Can somebody just give me an answer? Like, just tell me what does your mom call you? That's what I'll call you. Anyway, so let's go with Jalen Shead until we find something we hear otherwise. 3-star tight end. Obviously not going to have as much sizzle as signing Arik Gilbert, but what do we know about Jalen Shead?
One, he's a really physical blocker, and this is a guy that didn't really have many opportunities to catch the ball at Olive Branch last year, which LSU signed Xavier Hill out of and on the offensive line in the 2020 class, and now they've got Shead committed, who, for what it's worth, is really good friends with the number 1 defensive tackle in the country for next year's class, where he's from Olive Branch, and that's Walter Nolan. Now he goes to a school in Memphis now. He's been at IMG. He's kind of bounced around a little bit on the high school front, but that is worth noting that those two are really, really close. But with Jalen, I've heard a lot of people think he's a little bit better of an athlete than his film might show from his junior year, so much so that Olive Branch this year is going to do a lot more with him in the passing game. And so, 3-star prospect, top 50 tight end, not a lot of sizzle, but he did have an offer from Alabama. Ole Miss had an offer out to him. Those were his top 3 schools when he did end up committing to LSU. And now they'll push for a second tight end in the class, I would guess. Michael Trigg out of Tampa area is one that has LSU among his top schools. I think there's a little bit of work that needs to be done there, but they needed somebody to definitely come in that room and provide depth, and that's Shead. And with how thin that position is, they have to get some bodies in there. So I think Trigg is one that they're going to be continuing to press for. And then in-state, I would keep an eye on Shield Taylor out of Alexandria. He's committed to Stanford right now, but just the way things are going, it wouldn't shock me if he ended up in this class. But Jalen Shead, like you said, not a lot of sizzle, but they needed a physical tight end. He looks the part. He's got good size, but he's somebody that could potentially rise over the next year if he does, in fact, get his senior season.
Hey, Billy, let's talk a little bit about where the class stands. Ranked 3rd nationally in the 247 composite, 18 commits. With the remaining 7 spots, what ideally would that finish look like?
I would think you want 3 offensive linemen, so that would give them 4 total. That would be guys like Tristan Lee, and then from there we'll kind of see what the offensive line recruiting really brings, because it's been tough. I think LSU's been hurt pretty badly by not being able to have the usual unofficial and official visits, but that's kind of another story. I would think another wide receiver, somebody like Brian Thomas in the state of Louisiana, Sage Ryan, I mentioned him, the number 1 safety in the country. And then from there, you've got Mason Smith, the 5-star defensive tackle, still out there. I think potentially you could see maybe another linebacker fit into the room and maybe into that class, even though they do have some really talented players committed already. And then Corey Foreman's still out there, the 5-star defensive end. A second running back could be in the cards. So I would go three offensive linemen would be ideal, and then a running back, a receiver, maybe another tight end, and then defensive line and safety are both positions that would be probably of note in terms of what they're really going to push for.
He's on Twitter at Billy Embody Go 24/7. So there's obviously one sort of floating spot out there as well. They've undersigned by one in this past class, and Ed Ogeron said that they may backfill here with a grad transfer corner or a transfer corner, or they could use that spot in 2021, to backfill and have a signed 26. So it seems, Billy, like they're pretty keen on signing a cornerback, and they maybe even have that guy identified right now. Are you hearing anything different, or do you expect that they're going to add a cornerback to this current class for the 2020 season?
I would think that they add this corner, a corner for the 2020 season. Just from talking with some people, around the LSU side of things, there's certainly one out there in Nicholls State transfer Darren Evans, who I think you got to keep an eye on. He's a Baton Rouge native. He went to Glen Oaks. He actually was a top 3 finisher in the 400 meters way back when he was a senior at Glen Oaks. So he's got the athleticism. He's 6'3", 185 pounds. I would think he's one to watch. Now, the one thing I'll note here, and this is where colleges can kind of get a little creative, is that obviously LSU's already in school, so he could, now that he's already graduated, just kind of enroll at LSU. And I don't know if that would be a loophole they could take advantage of to maybe keep 26 as that number for the 2021 class. I've seen that done across the country by a few different schools, so it is something that maybe they could do, or like you mentioned, it could just be somebody that comes in right away and is a part of that 25 number that would be the final 2020 recruiting class spot, basically.
That would be a really interesting loophole if they found that way to get that done. But you never know, man. Play the game how you got to play it. Billy Embody, Go 24/7. He's on Twitter at Billy Embody. Be sure to give him a follow. We appreciate a couple of minutes, man. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Anytime, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.